Then let's move to the last speaker before our panel, and I'm happy to have with us Dries Bols, who's CEO of LIFEPOWR, a very interesting startup out of Belgium, who's talking to us about optimizing self-consumption and sales of solar power, and so simply how to smarten solar electrification at home. We've already heard a little bit on this in previous presentations, but here is someone who's fully focusing on that. Dries, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Michael, and also thank you for the invitation to speak here today. Just double check, you can hear me clearly?
Yep.
All right, great. So I'm indeed Dries Bols, CEO of LIFEPOWR. We are an energy service provider from Antwerp in Belgium. And basically, we valorize the energy flexibility from energy consumers. So we orchestrate their energy flows to balance the grids and act as an aggregator for them into the energy markets. If everything goes well, I will share my screen now and walk you through some slides that I've prepared for today. Almost there. Is my screen being shared properly? Yes, thumbs up. That's a good sign. All right, I named the presentation Solar Cells and the Need for a Smarter Choice for the Planet in Your Wallet. Suitable because probably was mentioned here today already, but we've had a great year behind us, 2023. A lot of new solar power was installed and deployed into the markets globally, and especially also in the European markets, but there is a catch. We see that clearly, both locally, sometimes in congestion, but definitely also in the energy markets. So more and more frequently, the prices are dropping. They're dropping steeply to zero or well below. And these more and more negative prices, of course, they have an impact on the whole solar market and the way that it is evolving also towards sales. And that's the situation today. Now we expect to deploy a whole lot more of solar in the next years to come, even double it in the next 5 years. But for that to really happen, it's important that we make some changes and evolve with the energy markets as well. And let me zoom in a little bit on the markets. I've mentioned that word a few times already. That's something that we specialize on with LIFEPOWR. And a few remarkable things have happened lately. Here's an example actually from the European power markets on the 1st of May. The 1st of May was a holiday in many European countries, and we were dealing with a massive overproduction that day. Here on the right side, you can see that Germany was basically overproducing about 10 gigawatts. That's a lot. And luckily that day, France was able to consume most of that, but for sure there will be days in the future where it's less easy to transport all the excess, and those days, yeah, it might really become problematic. And how do we see that in the power markets? Well, some of you might already be acquainted with the day-ahead prices. These are the market prices that are settled one day in advance. And here we have an example of that same day, and the power prices in the Netherlands, they really went down low, down to about minus 200 euro per megawatt hour for, let's say, large energy producers to be able to get rid of their solar excess. So a day in advance, they said, okay, for my megawatt hours, I will pay you 200 euros if you can take it, store it, burn it, whatever. So that's alarming, of course, because a negative price in a market, that doesn't feel well. It's also not a good sign. It might mean that the market is disrupted. The market is maybe broken. So we have to fix that. If we dive a bit deeper, because the day-ahead markets, it's just one market, we also have the imbalance markets. And that's more of an idea of what the real value of energy is at a given moment in time. So there's a comparison given here with this day-ahead charts, similar as you saw it here. This time it's from the 6th and 7th of of April, and these are Belgian prices, so not the Dutch prices as given here, but very similar. The behavior here on the 6th of April, there is a lot of solar forecasted. This was on a Saturday. Usually in the weekends, it means negative prices. So yeah, people look for buyers for their solar excess. But you can see here on the day itself that actually around the noon period, there was a bit of a shortage here on the Belgian grid. And actually, if you would be able to produce more energy, you would get royally remunerated for about 377 euro per megawatt hour. That's a lot. So it gives an indication that, of course, it always goes into both directions. You make a forecast and then reality happens. And based on that reality, you have that real value of energy. And then there's another very interesting example, and that's basically from the opposite. The 7th of April here, it was an interesting day because there was a forecast for Sahara sand moving over Europe. So the forecast said that there would be not so much PV production that day. Slightly negative here in the day ahead forecast. But what happened that actually the dust, it didn't show up, or it wasn't as profound as the forecast said it would be, resulting in, again, similar like here on the 1st of May, massive overproduction of solar, much more than anticipated. And in Belgium, we were dealing with an imbalance of about 2.4 gigawatts that we had to get rid of in some way. There's a couple of ways, and we'll go into that deeper. But basically, the TSOs in our region, they then try to activate all the flexible capacities that we have to solve this position and balance it. And then you can see that after a few hours, at sometime in the early afternoon, around 2 p.m., all these reserve capacities were basically gone. And we had a massively steep downwards imbalance price. And we were actually close to an emergency nuclear shutdown because there was too much power being produced and not much that could be done. And this is a very good showcase of one of the next steps that we have to do together with the whole industry. Let's focus a lot on PV curtailment possibilities, also for residential users, because PV curtailment basically becomes an essential ingredient for the resilience of the grids. It will happen more frequently. It will happen a lot more in the future. So we need to have a proper solution for that. Now, things like this that are happening, it has a reason, of course, that I'm diving in depth here. It's because the current situation is clearly unsustainable, but it also has a clear impact on the sector. Because for one end, if we look at the example here, the 1st of May, it means that there is an energy supplier with a whole portfolio of residential customers with PV, and they need to pay a lot of money to sell the excess production at noon from their client base. It's not a pleasant position for them. And then if you look at events such as this one, there would have been an incredible high imbalance penalty for these energy suppliers of all the excess solar that their portfolio is producing. I mean, penalties here of millions of euros per day that these energy providers have to pay. That's a lot of money. It's unsustainable for them. And you see also the market changing. So for example, here, 2 examples from the Netherlands, one from earlier this month, where Eneco, one of the market leaders, said, okay, per kilowatt hour that you inject into the grid, we're going to charge you 11.5 cents. And then yesterday, similar with another top provider, they also announced that they would be charging for injecting power back into the grid. And this, of course, it has a big impact for users in the markets who just invested in solar or who are still considering to invest in solar, because the business case comes under pressure. And however it might still make economical sense, the psychological motivators for getting solar, they're getting some serious hits these days. And the numbers also show it. So for Flanders, in the first quarter of this year, the numbers have dropped about 70% in residential solar sales. That's, of course, a lot. You also see that some residential solar installers, they're going bankrupt because they don't get any new sales. So there's something definitely in the whole industry moving. And the important message next is, of course, how can we turn this tide? Because we're at a certain situation where everybody understands that there is a disruption in the markets, that things need to change. And here are possible ingredients of how we can turn the tides and make sure we can continue deploying and selling a lot of solar for the future to come. Because obviously we still need to do that if we want to go towards a solar economy in the future. So the key elements that can bring back balance to the grids and offer flexibility is, at first, of course, demand response. Use energy when it is available. Makes a lot of sense. If you still then have excess power, then you can store it for later usage. And we also, of course, see an incredible increase of battery storage systems, but of course also we have other solutions like pumped hydro, etc., which will be a key element for the future. And then third, the point I tried to make earlier is this solar curtailment, which a few years ago, probably everybody was focusing on how can we get as much as possible efficiency from a certain solar cell or from a certain power plant. But now it becomes elementary to be able to curtail your production when the grid needs that. And if you apply these three balancing elements in a proper way, we also see that you can get a lot more economical benefits and thus greatly improve this business case for solar, which we clearly need if we look at these previous examples. And it's significant. So looking at just investing in a solar plus battery system, it also doesn't cut it anymore. It's really all about the smart balancing of the whole situation to get most of the value economically, but of course also for the balance in the grid. And then there's also still some challenges remaining. For example, the solar curtailments. We're close, but we're cracking the code of how we can get the value back into the pockets of or the wallets of the energy consumers. Because of course, the message we want to give to the market is, look, if we have to turn down your PV inverter, we're going to pay you for that. So people happily, of course, offer the flexibility from their system to the markets because they share in the rewards. And now we're going to look at a few case studies of applying this smart balancing and flexibility. And what we see here is for a pool of residential prosumers, the green graph here, it is their load profile throughout a day. And you see typically that the consumption is higher in the morning, of course, less at noon because there's also PV production, and then higher again in the evening. And it very clearly follows the plot of the day-ahead market prices. It makes sense. When there's a higher demand, there's a higher price. When there's a lower demand, there's a lower price. And then here below, you see for a different set of users who had active steering on such a day-ahead tariff, that their load profile has become completely inverse. So these users, they are consuming most when prices are lowest, and they are consuming least when prices are high. And doing this type of daily market arbitrage with residential systems at scale, well, let's say for individual first, it has a benefit in 2023 of about 830 euros, which is significant also for the payback, and that's a business case of investing in solar. So if you do this properly, you can really reduce the energy bill in a big way. But what do you need to do that? Well, you need a good knowledge of the local system, what is possible, and what can we do behind the meter for starters. So you have to adapt to regional tariffs and taxes. Such a tax could also be, for example, on what we call the capacity tariff in Flanders, where basically peak shaving also gives you a saving. On the other hand, of course, you can optimize both your consumption and your solar production onto these energy market rates. So you can inject back to the grids at those moments that the prices are the highest, and you consume when they are the lowest or even negative. So basically, you get paid for consuming more energy at a certain moment in time. If you do this well, and you do this across the different assets that you would have on a local system, so it's not only solar and storage, but also the EV, also other large loads such as heating and cooling, then you can get considerate savings And for a use case here, for a user in April that we're looking at, their savings were 52 euros additionally on top of what a standard just solar case would have produced. Now, what is needed? What can we do more? In this use case, we were also actively balancing the grid, so we can generate extra earnings from tapping into these market potentials. And what were we doing here on site? We were offering ancillary services with this residential user. We were also doing imbalance market arbitrage. And there we see that we can get an additional flex reward of about 37 euro for the month of April, so last month. So basically, with LIFEPOWR, this is one of the services that we can offer to them. We can aggregate a lot of these low voltage delivery points together and offer them into the markets as one larger virtual power plant, and then let the rewards flow back to the individual users so they really feel the benefits of being part of this bigger picture. So combining this use case, if we look at the combined benefit here, we have about 90 euros of additional gains in the month of April by doing things in a smarter way, a more system-friendly way. So you get savings, you get additional earnings. But last and not least, of course, we're now really actively contributing to the whole energy transition, because just installing solar panels on your roof is today probably causing more problems than doing good. So what we really need to do now is be considerate and be system friendly in the new systems that we deploy. And then we also have a direct impact in reducing carbon emissions, because all these imbalances, the bulk of them are covered still by gas-fired peaker plants. So there's actually quite some carbon emissions involved with working away these imbalances in the grids that I was showing in the beginning. So if we can participate with all these distributed PV and battery systems, we can directly reduce the carbon emissions because less of these gas peaker plants need to be activated in the process. So this is basically the summary. We can get a lot of extra benefits by balancing the grid. It's what we need. It's going to create the new room in the markets, which all of us need, so we can continue to install more solar in the years to come. So I think I'm about 15 minutes in, so we have a few more minutes for questions.
Hey, Dries, wonderful. Thanks a lot. I think this is, of course, the key. So solar industry is looking for selling more and more. The market is growing. Everyone wished it would grow even faster, but of course, on the infrastructure side, there are some issues, and not only on the infrastructure side, also on the regulatory side. I think you're active in Belgium. How do you see this product actually also in other markets? So I think you have the fortunate situation that you can use dynamic tariffs. Are you looking already also beyond Belgium?
Yes, absolutely. So there's a big need in a lot of countries these days, and we're also getting active in the Netherlands right now. So there's very similar market dynamics there. Also, the dynamic tariffs are very popular in the Netherlands. So we are becoming active there. And as LIFEPOWR, we will be licensing our technology. So there will be a lot of local market actors that will be rebranding and labeling our technologies within their own products to be able to offer these benefits to their client bases. So that's the way that we are scaling out into Europe. There's also clear interest in Germany and some other countries. And we see that, yeah, in the years to come, it will be key for the entire continent. So hope we can scale out to a lot of neighbors.
How is the interest from TSO, from utilities when you talk to those guys, when you talk to grid operators? So I think so.
It's super high. So it's super high. We are indeed partnering very closely with large energy providers, BRPs, the TSOs, so the grid operators. The grid operators clearly come to us with the question of, can we curtail solar at scale? Because we will be facing these issues more and more often. We need a solution. The grid operators also, they have a strict responsibility to balance the grid. So there's two options. Either the market will solve it, or it will have to be a regulatory decision. So either they just force PV inverters to shut down, or we can have a market solution like the one we are proposing. So of course, we're doing everything we can to go for this market approach. And then on the other hand, let's say the energy providers, yeah, they're really being hurt these days. Their management is lying awake because they're thinking of these sunny Sundays and their €1 million imbalance invoices. So they are actively seeking for solutions. So together with them and putting all the pieces together, I think we can have a nice impact. And of course, it's again, it's not only a problem in Belgium and Netherlands, but we're all facing it.
Okay. And when you see at the market, also in terms of competition, so I think of course optimization software products, there's many of them out there, but at least with the feature that you are offering, probably not so much, right?
Yeah, correct. So the playing field of the aggregators, the flexibility service providers, it's a small one. So for example, in Belgium, there's only 8 companies involved with these ancillary services and direct flexibility services. And we also see that mostly, but almost all of them, they have been and are focused on the C&I segment. So they're involved with larger volumes, industrial customers, and the residential users have been neglected. But of course, yeah, there are about 2/3 of the installed capacity out there. So we play an important role also for them. There's a couple of them that approached us and said, look, could you be our expert for the low voltage segment? Because simply today we don't have a solution. You focused on that. So I think with a couple of these companies, in a way, you can see each other as competitors, or we can just work together and make sure we have a solution that, again, balances the grid and makes everybody happy, because that's what we need right now.
And if you look into it from policy perspective, so how, because usually I think these things often take longer than one wishes, because policymakers are slow, regulators are slow, policymakers are even slower. So so how's the awareness, and how quick do you think things can be fixed and are moving in at least the leading solar markets that we see in Europe?
Yeah, it depends what kind of regulatory frameworks. So some are indeed slow, some are very influenced by politics, and we see that they are moving too slow, but that solutions like ours will need to sometimes hard force them. And like I quoted the TSO, they basically say, look, either the market will solve it, or we'll have to actively shut down PV inverters. So there needs to be a solution on the short term. And what we're trying to do is, with the frameworks that exist, adapt and make sure that everything works. So of course, regulatory changes are planned in the next years, probably throughout the next decade. Probably they'll keep on changing forever, and we'll just adapt always and get the best out of the situation that we can, given the current framework. Because power is flowing every instant, every minute, and we do something right now and not wait until politicians to decide to get something moving.
Super cool. Thanks a lot. Good luck. I think it's a very important product you're having and working on. So I think you need to go to a meeting, and then thanks a lot, Dries.